Looking at old pictures always reminds me of when my children were small. I took a lot of pictures. I love to take pictures. Even though I've had a real varied life and I've been a teacher and I've gotten to fulfill a lot of my goals, I think the best part of my life that I really appreciate the most is being a mom. I have felt so blessed to raise 4 children and just felt like just felt so blessed that God would trust me to raise children for Him. And they definitely tried me at times, and they definitely made me rely on prayer a lot. One of the most pivotal points in my life when I really had to work on prayer was when we were having our 3rd child. We actually had a miscarriage and found out later that that was a girl, and that was so sad for us because you lose a child and it's so sad. And right away I started praying that we would have another child. I really wanted a boy. My dad hadn't had any boys. We only had girls, and this would have been the first boy in the family for a long time, except for my dad. And I just asked God if He would give me a boy. And so right away we got pregnant again. We were so excited. And of course, back in those days, they didn't tell you what the sex of the baby was right away. We had to wait until he was born. And when he was born, we brought him home and everything seemed fine, except, he just didn't seem right. It was very scary for me. I knew what children were supposed to be like. I'd had a lot of training as a teacher and a lot of training as just being a mom of 2 other children. And here I brought this baby home and the baby would not wake up to eat. And I really didn't know what to do. So, of course, I called the doctor, and they accused me of being a nervous mom, and which was probably true. I was pretty nervous. Babies usually wake up to cry. And so they had me come in and bring the baby in, and they took blood, which of course made him scream his head off. He was quite awake then. And then they ran a lot of tests, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. They sent me back home, and well, a couple weeks later, he still wasn't waking up to eat, and that was so strange. So I took him back in, and they did more blood work, and this time they did say, oh, something's really wrong, and they made him go right to the hospital. Well, that scared me, of course, but I was glad of getting some help because I knew something was wrong. Well, he had low oxygen levels in his blood, which I found out later were from RSV, which is respiratory sinusitis virus, which is real dangerous to infants. And by this time he was 6 weeks old, and I'll never forget what happened. They attached him to all kinds of tubes and kept poking his feet to take blood, and he would scream and cry, and he was losing weight, and he just wasn't doing well. He had a collapsed left lung, and his right lung was compromised by a lot of mucus. And at one point they came in and said to me and my husband, they said, there's a good chance he won't make it. We're going to give this baby 42 hours, and that will make or break how he's going to do. He may not live. And I said, are you serious? He might die? And they said, yeah, you might want to pray if you pray. I said, pray? Yeah, I'll pray, of course. So I called everyone I knew, called my parents, called my church, called my mom, called so she could call her church, and my sister. I mean, we just did everything we could to find anybody who could pray for him. And I'll never forget when they said he may not live. It kept echoing through my mind, and I didn't know what to think. I just called out to God, and I just said, I don't even know what to pray. So I asked the nurse if there was a Bible somewhere, and she found me a Bible, and I read the prayer that Hannah shouted out to God when she wanted children. It's in Samuel. And I prayed that over him. And then that gave me some courage, and I found some words then, and then I prayed more, and I said, God, please save the life of this child. I said, we already lost one, and then this is the boy my dad has been wanting, and I wanted a boy so badly. And I said, I will raise this child in the church, and I promise he will know you and I hopefully he will grow up to live for you is my hope. But I said I will do everything I can in my part to help him to grow as a Christian and to serve you when he grows up. And I just prayed. I bet I prayed for an hour. I just stood there and prayed and cried and prayed and cried, and in about a day and a half, he started improving, and they let us take him home about 4 days later, and it still was touch and go really throughout his early life, but he got stronger and stronger. It did take a long time, but God answered our prayers. He lived, and once he turned 2, he seemed like he was very healthy, and he turned out to be a very sweet and loving child. And you know, I promised God, I took him to church as often as I could, like I did all my kids, and tried to teach him about God and made sure he got saved, and just tried to make sure that we followed through with the things that I told God I would do, because I wanted to make sure that I did my part from what I said I would do in that prayer. I never forgot that prayer I prayed. And to this day, he is a living example of what God can do, and I'm so glad for him. It's such a blessing to us.